We're going to just start at the beginning in Genesis, and I'm just going to remind people of the kind of the basis of what a lot of what we're going to talk about today. Out of Genesis 1, it says, Then God said, Let the earth sprout vegetation, plants yielding seed, and fruit trees on the earth bearing fruit after their kind with seed in them. The earth brought forth vegetations, plants yielding seed after their kind, and trees bearing fruit after their kind. And you get the point. It goes on and talking about the sea monsters and every living creature that moves, with which the waters swarmed after their kind, and every winged bird after its kind. And God said, Let the earth bring forth living creatures after their kind, cattle and creeping things and beasts of the earth after their kind, after their kind, after their kind. 10 times in Genesis 1, he defines biological life as all or after their kind. And even when he gave the commands to Noah about the ark, 5 times he tells them, Bring 2 of every kind of all birds after their kind, and of the animals after their kind. So God takes this very serious about, he set certain limits within the biological diversity of animals of all types and plants or after their kind. Question is, what is a kind? We've talked about this before. We as humans, we're going to try to classify these, and this system of phyletic classification was developed by a Christian, Carl Linné or Carl von Linné, who was a botanist, and he's considered the father of modern taxonomy. And he built the system based upon that biblical concept of all creatures can be distinguished by their kind. So he built a system of distinguishing these in different categories down to the genus. And genus was the Latin for kind. He took it straight out of the Bible, and species was a special type within that kind. In other words, that kind could have a variety, could have diversity within it. But the whole taxonomic classification system is based upon the biblical principle that all life forms can be distinguished. We can see certain characteristics and fit them into a kind. And that was 100 years before Charles Darwin. But since Darwin, they've done a couple of things. They've added in 2 new classes, the phylum and the family just above genus. But they've used this classification system to try to show it's based on linkages, that they are wanting to show how life forms evolved, when in fact the whole premise of the phyletic system is no, they are by distinct kinds within. So the question is really, what is a kind? We're going to be talking about the canines. And all of these you see, the wolf, the coyote, fox, domestic dogs, are all in the same family, in the same genus, Canis. And so the question is, from a biblical standpoint, what is a kind? This is something that we debate a good bit about among creationists. It's baramins. Baramins, it's bar is created and the min is kind. That's from the Hebrew. And so where do you make this distinction? Because now we're going to talk a lot about how we have so many different types of domestic dogs, but they are all of one kind. All of these are different in different anatomic characteristics, but they can all breed. And I say that because I used to have a Labrador retriever when I was in graduate school, that a person we got it from said, well, our lab gave birth, but we're not sure if it's half German Shepherd or half Coyote, because they both got in the fence and bred with the dog. Well, I love that dog. That was my favorite dog of all times. We hiked, we canoed. The dog loved canoeing, whitewater, but she'd get excited sometimes and jump out the canoe, which would make it a little tipsy. But she had all these characteristics that I hadn't seen in a domestic dog. Like anytime she found a dead animal, that's what she was going to rub in. She wanted that scent on her. And I took her to work with me one day. I was working as a forest hydrologist, and I was way out in the woods at my research site doing night storm monitoring. and a pack of coyotes came through, and she left me and was gone. She decided to come become a coyote. And every day for about 3 weeks, I would go out there and try to call her. And I finally just gave up. And one day I was out there doing work, and here she comes running up. She was ready to be a dog again, a domestic dog. Usually, coyotes will kill a domestic dog if they, like that. But nope, she just went and ran with them. And so we have all these distinction of breeds, but all of these are actually not just the same genus, they're the same species, Canis familiaris. Um, and so we breed these to get certain distinctions, but it's not always a distinction based upon their anatomy. Oftentimes it's based upon what their personality is, what they are driven by. I've had two labs in my life, and both of them were just obsessed with retrieving. That's just what they did. And if they didn't have something in their mouth and you throwing constantly till your arm gave out, I mean, they weren't happy. That was just their life. Um, but that breeding sometimes can lead to a lot of problems because labs were known for having hip problems. And my last lab had such hip problems. He got to the point couldn't walk. But that lab was interesting because the really great dog. Except during the summertime, we'd have to pin her up because she would eat our corn before it would, right when it was getting ripe and ready to pick, she'd go through our cornfield worse than the raccoons eating it. And at one point, we were going to accuse our neighbors' kids of stealing all of our strawberries. But then we found out, no, our dog was eating our strawberries. He would also eat our muscadines, which are like grapes. But they're all the same. Even this Great Dane and that little Chihuahua, they are all in the same species.